So here's a thought. What if the future of one of the biggest political movements in America isn't about Washington, D.C. at all? What if it's actually about what happens in your own backyard? Well, today we're cracking open a book called MAGA 2.0, and it lays out a blueprint for exactly that. It's all about a big shift towards something it calls local populism.
And that brings up a really interesting question, one the book really dives into. Is there even a MAGA 2.0? Is the movement changing, or maybe more importantly, should it change into something totally new? And what would that even look like? All right, let's get into it. Okay, so here's how we're going to break this all down. First, we'll look at why the book says a redefinition is even needed. Then, and this is key, we'll compare national versus local populism. After that, we'll dig into the historical ideas behind it all, and finally, we'll get practical with a community action plan. All right, first up, the MAGA redefinition. So you got to ask, right? Why even call it a 2.0? Well, the book argues this whole idea is a direct answer to a very specific problem it sees in today's political world.
According to the author, this whole new framework is born out of what they call an identity crisis. You see, the book points to this real tension between the energy of the voters on the ground and the, let's say, more traditional approach of party leaders. It's described as a kind of tug of war for the soul of the party.
And here's the main critique, the real heart of the argument. The book points out a big contradiction. The whole idea is to push back against federal power, right? But the main way that's been done is by relying on a really strong top-down federal power, the presidency. The author basically says, hey, focusing so much on one person in the White House actually undermines the whole point. So that critique, it leads us right into the core idea of the entire book. It's all about making a distinction between two very different ways of thinking about populism.
Okay, check this out, because this is really the whole thing in a nutshell. On one side, you have what the book calls national populism. Think top-down, everything focused on Washington, D.C., relying on that centralized leadership. But then, on the other side, you've got the proposed MAGA 2.0, which is all about local populism. This is the complete opposite. It's bottom-up, it's focused on your own community, and it's all about self-governance and decentralized action. It's a huge shift from trying to fix Washington to, well, basically ignoring it and building something new.
And the whole spirit behind this pivot, the whole ethos, is wrapped up in this one phrase you see over and over in the book: no permission needed. Seriously, it's this idea that people should just get together and solve their own local problems, without waiting for some politician or bureaucrat hundreds of miles away to give them the green light.
So, you might be thinking, is this a brand new idea? Where does this stuff even come from? Well, the book is pretty clear that it's not trying to invent anything new here. Instead, it's all about going back, way back, to a very specific set of historical and philosophical roots. And those roots, they're planted firmly in the political philosophy of Thomas Jefferson. I mean, the whole framework is built on his ideas. The book makes the case that this vision of a decentralized America made up of self-governing communities isn't a new plan at all. It's a direct revival of what Jefferson wanted for the country.
The author even has a name for this ideal, Jeffersonian America. But look, it's not about a specific time in history. It's a concept. It describes a nation where power flows from the bottom up. It starts with you, with individuals, with local communities. It doesn't trickle down from some huge federal government.
And according to the author's take on Jefferson, this whole model stands on three main pillars. First up is individual liberty, the idea that freedom is something to be protected, not handed out by the government. Second, you've got state sovereignty, which acts as a check on federal power. And third, the big one, self-governance, the idea that people, citizens, are actually responsible for running their own communities. Okay, so that's the what and the why, the critique of the old way and the philosophy behind the new one. But how do you actually do it? How do you turn all these big ideas into something real? Well, that brings us to the practical part of the blueprint, the actual how-to guide.
The book lays out this simple 4-step cycle for taking action right where you live. It's a pretty straightforward process. Step 1, educate. You learn about the issues, you talk to your neighbors. Step 2, advocate. You actually push for change with your local leaders. 3, organize. You form community groups. And finally, step 4, mobilize. You get those groups working together to make things happen.
And we're talking about really concrete local stuff here. The book gives a ton of examples. This isn't about grand national campaigns. Nope. It's about showing up at school board meetings, partnering with your local and state officials, maybe even starting MAGA 2.0 clubs. It's about using your local government to pass resolutions or push back against federal rules. The focus is just laser sharp on the local level.
And you can see this whole philosophy is really a flat-out rejection of the idea that Washington is where change happens. I mean, the author basically says the system is broken, period, and that trying to fix it from the inside is a waste of time. The only real path forward, according to this blueprint, is to just go around it, to build new ways of governing from the ground up, starting in your own town.
And that's really what it all boils down to. The book leaves us with this massive question. It's making the case for a pretty radical change in strategy, shifting from a national, top-down movement to something totally decentralized and bottom-up. So the final question it really makes you ask is this: does real, lasting change come from winning power in Washington, or does it come from making Washington irrelevant, by building something new from the outside in?